So maybe you were recently told by a partner that they can't be what you need. And you're left wondering, is this something they truly believe? Because it sounds like it could just be an excuse. Well, have you ever heard this before and then felt confused or hurt? Especially if you've recently invested so much, only to hear that you might not be the person that they think they can show up for back. Well, if you don't understand what we're going to unpack here today, it could lead you constantly chasing somebody who may not actually be the right fit for you. So it's really important that you understand the mechanics of what an avoidant means when they say that they can't show up for you and be what you need. And if you're new to this channel, hello and welcome. My name is Thais, and my hope for you here today is that I can help you unpack what is actually going on in your relationships around these types of patterns so that you can have peace and healing, which will then empower you to have the best relationships that you can possibly have and really achieve your fullest relationship potential. So, what does it actually mean when somebody says to you, I can't be what you need in a relationship? Well, first and foremost, if this is coming from an avoidant attachment style, and if you're not familiar with what the four attachment styles are, they're basically relationship styles. Every single person has one. And I'll put a couple lines in the description down below so you can just read through and identify what yours is and what you think your partner or potentially exes might have been. But when somebody says, I can't be what you need, if this is coming from an avoidant person, this is usually coming from them having a huge core wound. The core wound that goes, I am incapable of change and of being there for somebody else. At a deeper level, the actual core wound is I'm not good enough, but it often manifests in this idea of like, I can't be what somebody needs or expects from me. Why did they come to believe that? And is it something that they truly believe, or is this just an excuse that they're using? Well, the reason they came to believe this specifically is because a lot of dismissive avoidant attachment styles grew up in a household where they found themselves not having healthy modeling of two people exchanging needs. In other words, if there's a lot of emotional neglect in a household, they don't see their parents exchanging needs, and they often don't see an exchange happening between themselves and their parent. Now, every child is wired for attunement. They're actually wired for closeness in relationships and somebody to be able to tune into what they're feeling and notice it and work to modify their behavior to help soothe their child. In other words, if they see the child crying, they would attune to that, recognize the child's in distress, and try to go towards the child with what we call approach-oriented behaviors in psychology to try to soothe them, to try to figure out what's going on and why they're feeling that way and how they can make it better. This, in turn, establishes this healthy connection and relationship between the child and the parent, and then allows the child to feel like I can trust that my parents want to show up for me, will try to meet my needs, will attempt to try to make me feel better. And this, in turn, establishes this connection and belief in relationships as a whole later on in life. I believe that when I relate to somebody and connect with them, that we will look out for each other, we will tune into each other and try to support each other in various forms. But for a lot of dismissive avoidant children, they grew up in households where attunement was dramatically lacking. In other words, they often cried or expressed needs growing up, and it was met with a form of rejection, either through deflection, diminishing the need, ignoring or dismissing the child. And what this leaves a child to do is to feel like the only way they can cope with this kind of environment is by becoming hyper independent, by not needing anybody else, by not relying on anybody else, and really by not being vulnerable to other people so that you don't have to relive this painful experience of childhood again. It's almost like the dismissive avoidant person goes, okay, let me just not need anybody so that I don't have to be in a situation where I'm going to need somebody and they can't be there for me. And so, what you'll often see is they then grow up to build their personality, thinking, okay, relationships are just about us being really independent. That's what they were taught. That's how they were parented. That's what they were shown. And so, that, of course, is their concept about relationships. So, when people come into a relationship with a dismissive avoidant attachment style, hoping to have reciprocity, which is actually what a healthy, secure relationship delivers on. It delivers on what is known as interdependence. It doesn't mean I meet all of your needs and you meet all of mine and we never communicate and we never self-soothe or meet our own needs. It doesn't mean that at all. It means specifically that I have the ability to meet my own needs and to show up for myself and to rely on myself and trust myself. But I equal to that have the ability to rely on others, to communicate my needs to others, to receive support in healthy ways. And this is interdependence. It's the ability to access both ends of that continuum. But when we get too polarized to one end, like a dismissive avoidant does, we think that relationships are about what we're used to, what we know, how we've been conditioned to see relationships, which becomes I see relationships as I show up for my own needs, you show up for yours. And then every so often we come together for a little bit of mutual benefit, be it to have some fun or some light conversation, but we never really soothe through each other. We never really open up too much and are too vulnerable. We never rely on each other too much because we can't depend on each other. So why would we do that? But that unfortunately just represents the dismissive avoidant and their attachment pain, the wounds that they've been through in the past. So when they say that to you, if that's something that you hear from them, it's actually something the vast, vast majority of the time they do believe. And when they say it, they often feel confused about the expectation for reciprocity when all of their conditioning in their reality has been about independence, not interdependence. So when somebody comes into relationship to them, asks for their needs to be met, asks for compromise. This feels like it really shakes to the core how they expect relationships to go. And it often feels them feeling lost or confused or overwhelmed until, of course, they learn about attachment styles and their own attachment style in relationships. And by learning about that, they are then empowered to realize, oh, making small, healthy compromises over time is actually healing for me. And learning to convey my needs and communicate to others and practice receiving from others specifically what I need is also healing as well. But until then, a lot of times a dismissive avoidant just believes I can't be what they need. And when there are demands for compromises or are demands for, hey, let's meet each other's needs and develop more reciprocity, and let's learn to regulate through each other sometimes and soothe each other in certain ways, it can leave a dismissive avoidant feeling like there's too much expectation and there can be a lot of confusion from their end. So I'm going to talk to you in a second about what a dismissive avoidant often does after they say this and what often happens if they do depart a relationship on those terms, saying that they couldn't be what the other person needed or expected from them. I'm going to share with you a little bit about their inner world and their experience after that happens. But I do want to let you know if you're going through this, either as an avoidant listening to this that realized, oh my gosh, I sometimes sabotage relationships through this pattern and now I see why. Or as an attachment style who's been on the receiving end, a person on the receiving end of this pattern as well. For anybody who's going through this comes from painful previous conditioning. And it's painful to be in that position and it's painful to receive it. And so if you want to do a deeper dive into healing fully for free for a limited time, you can check out any of our attachment style healing programs down below. And it'll give you more than enough time to make a big dent in that program. And it's for each attachment style. So you can find yours in there. You can take the quiz, the onboarding quiz, see what attachment style you are if you're not sure, and then start the work because there's really 5 key pillars of healing your attachment style to becoming secure and building the best relationships of your life as a result. And so you can make a dent in that. And if you decide you love it and you want to stick to it, you can stick around and join me. And I'm in there all the time. You can ask me your questions personally and join our live events. Or you can decide, oh, I did some healing and that was all I wanted. And if you cancel before that free trial period is over, you'll never be charged anything. So it's sort of my gift to you. If you see that it's a good fit for you, that's amazing. And my hope is that you're able to do some deep inner work as a result. This is only available for a limited time. And this is something we do literally once a year. So take advantage now while you can. Now, what an avoidant does after they depart a relationship on these terms is they often end up in a situation where they then feel a decent amount of guilt and regret. And they wonder why this tends to be a pattern for themselves, and yet they often keep just repeating the behavior. But when they have the ability to actually learn, okay, this is my attachment style, these are my patterns, they can then do that inner work. And oftentimes we'll see a dismissive avoidant show up really well for the inner work. But sometimes an avoidant will also end up in a situation where they're like, this inner work scares me. I don't want to go there. I'm not ready to face a lot of these patterns. I'm not ready to try to relate to somebody else. And in that particular case, you're just going to see them drift further and further away and often rationalize their decision that, okay, I wasn't going to be what this person needed or expected from me anyways. And so what you really need to be doing if you're on the receiving end of this, if you are the avoidant yourself listening, I obviously urge you to like go and do some of the inner work. I know we have a lot of avoidants who are doing the work and who are following this channel. But if you're also on the receiving end of this, I really urge you to do something called vetting. If you're not familiar with what this means, it's something we should all be doing when we're dating somebody anyways. And it means rather than thinking, because it's something that a lot of people will do with an avoidant, that, oh, I can people please my way into creating a better relationship with this person, or I can win them over by being more perfect or showing up in the ways that they need, rather than putting yourself in that position where you're going to abandon your boundaries or your needs to try to win somebody over, hoping that it kind of solves for this situation. You have to understand that you'll never people please your way into secure relationships. It doesn't work like that. So, what you'll want to be able to do instead is actually learn to advocate for yourself a little bit more. Share what you need. Tell somebody what it is that you're looking for. Ask for healthy compromises and then wait to see how they respond. If somebody shows up in a healthy way and they respond by actually making an effort, these are really good green flags. They're good signs that the person's doing the work. They're working on making compromises. They're moving within themselves to try to make strides. But if you see no needle moving in the first, let's say, month or 2 months that you're communicating your needs, well, now you know that they're just in the position where they're not ready to do the work yet. And they're not able to go inwards and move through some of these things. And so it's better that there is a separation in the relationship, because one of the most painful things to stay in is a relationship where one person's trying to do everything they can and the other person's not moving with them. And it leaves you growing apart, even though you're stuck on the hopes that you'll grow together. So my advice for you is to make sure you vet and you also do the work on your own attachment wounding, which will be to practice taking up space, sharing your needs. I know that you'll get scared that it's going to push the person away, but that's your work, just like the avoidant has the work to do as well. And if you're unwilling or unable to do the work, you'll never get a fair chance to see if something could have worked in the first place. And if it doesn't work, despite you communicating and taking up space, you will at least know with certainty that, hey, this isn't the right relationship for me right now, because this person's not able to pour into me back the way I'm trying to pour into myself and this relationship. And that will leave you with a sense of closure and peace if you have to go in the other direction away from that person, knowing that you did everything that you could first. So hopefully this is helpful for you. If you want to go deeper, again, you can check out those free attachment style healing programs for a limited time down below. And if you have questions about this content in more detail, let me know your questions in the comments. And thank you so much for watching and for stopping by. I hope you subscribe. I hope you share this video with somebody that it may prove valuable to, and hope you stick around, and I'll see you in future videos.